In this episode, I'm going to be talking about the case of Brianna Ghey. Now, the two defendants have just recently been sentenced in the last few days and have been sentenced to life imprisonment. Now, this case is quite controversial because of the age of the two murderers at the time. Now, this is one of those cases that shocked the nation. Even though it wasn't massively publicised, I hadn't actually seen it on the news myself whilst it happened. But I did, when I was researching up on other videos, this is when it came to light. And a couple of my subscribers have been following the case and they've asked us if I could cover it. Now, the two defendants were 15-year-old at the time. And it was Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe. And they were convicted for the murder of Brianna Ghey. But what I'll do now, I'll play you a little bit of the sentence's remarks from the judge when the two were sentenced.
I have weighed all the aggravating and mitigating factors that apply to each of you. Although I have taken the same starting point, I have concluded that the final minimum terms must be different. In Scarlett's case, the aggravating features are significant and would have led to a substantial uplift to the starting point, but for the mitigation, particularly that relating to maturity and mental disorder. There must still be an uplift, but it will be moderated. In Eddie's case, I find that the balance to be struck between aggravating factors, which are not quite as high as in Scarlett's case, and the mitigation I have identified is such as to cancel each other out. In saying that, I have taken account of all the medical evidence and accept the diagnosis of ASD has some impact, but the extent to which it reduced your culpability in the circumstances of this offending is limited. This was undoubtedly a very serious offence with multiple aggravating factors. That is the context in which I impose minimum terms which are lengthy for offenders of your age, albeit significantly less than an equivalent sentence for an adult. The parole board will have to decide if and when either or both of you can be released. That will only happen if you no longer pose a danger. If you are released, you will remain on licence for life and you may be recalled to prison. I will now sentence each of you. You may remain seated. In both cases, the relevant statutory surcharge will apply. Scarlett Jenkinson, for the murder of Brianna Ghey, you will be detained at His Majesty's pleasure. I set the minimum term at 22 years, less the 352 days that you have spent on remand. Eddie Ratcliffe, for the murder of Brianna Ghey, you will be detained at His Majesty's pleasure. I set the minimum term at 20 years, less the 352 days that you have spent on remand.
So as you can see by the judge's sentencing, Scarlett was sentenced to life with a minimum of 22 years and Eddie was sentenced to life with a minimum of 20 years. Now, the minimum tariff doesn't mean they will be released from prison once they've served it. But if in the meantime they get all the courses done and they prove that they're no longer a risk, then the possibility of parole is eligible. Just wanted to cover this case because a few people in the comment section have been talking about it, and it is a high profile case, even though at the time I don't think it was as high profile as it should have been, because I can't recall saying this when it happened. And this might have been because there was a blanket on the names of the two defendants that were referred to as, I can't remember, it might have been A and B, something similar, but they lifted the restrictions and that's why they were now allowed to be named, because I think under the ages of 16, there's some sort of law where they can't name them in the papers until they get found guilty, and then the 16, which is happening with it now. But I will talk a lot more on child murderers on me channel. But again, people, if you are enjoying the content, remember to comment, like and subscribe. Take care, people, and enjoy the rest of your day.